White Devil Armory is the latest release that you came out with, but 35 years of being in Overkill, I know that you got something coming up. I know you're brewing new material. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I got a few heists. I'm out in Jersey, you know what I'm saying? We're burying the bodies and getting rid of the fingerprints. Jersey guys can have fun anywhere, you know, that's the thing, you know, I mean, it's, but what we do at this point, and what I've recognized, I mean, we talked earlier about excitement and versus the mundane. I like writing on the road. Yeah, I like recording demos on the road. And it doesn't have to be everybody. It has to be me, personally. Right. And the reason it is, I learned it a few years back. I was on I forget I was on tour with, I think it was Vader. And I said, wow, I had a recording device back here with an 8-track, and I had all the hot demos that we were doing. And I would finish the show, I'd have a couple of beers, I'd come back here and lay down some tracks, because I said, how close can I make this demo to the excitement that happens on the stage?
Wow.
So it was kind of a cool thing for me. And then we did an Overkill creator tour and got along. I mean, we get along famously with those guys. They're kind of like our German cousins, you know, and we're their slower cousins from the U.S. You're not so progressive as us. Who cares? But I love them to death, and it was a great tour. And, I'm thinking to myself, shit, man, I just saw Speezy and Sammy and Ventura and Milla just do this killer show. I had a couple of beers. I'm drying myself off. I'm going to go lay some tracks for White Devil in the back of the bus.
That's good inspiration.
And it was, and that's kind of what we have going on at this point. We spoke earlier that we don't talk our records to death. I remember a conversation with Dee Dee back in the 90s, because we're releasing something called Overkill, and we were sitting in Europe, right? It's a beautiful sunny morning, both having coffee and, the Jersey wife beaters, like this, stirring it. I said, what do you think about the new record? He goes, we're not going to reinvent the fucking wheel, are we? I said, probably not. And he goes to me, he goes, Blitz, there's nothing more dangerous than two guys from Jersey who got nothing to lose. And I took that, let me tell you something, I took that with me since that conversation. So I like to record on the road, I like to think I have nothing to lose, and I like to think I'm not reinventing the wheel. But I'm seeing riffs floating around from the other boys, there's some vocal lines I have. As soon as we get home, we're going to start turning those riffs into songs, head to South America, record while I'm down there on something. Back here, record while we're touring. So it's going to be, that's where we are at this point.
One of the things that I also really appreciate about Overkill is that you are a true, real, raw rock and roll band, man. You get up on stage and you really, it's not a performance, it's not a theatrical, it's just raw rock and roll. Apparently that word is not cool to say no more. How do you keep that energy, man? And I don't mean not only the physical stamina, but the energy, because I'm around kids and I get fucking annoyed 10 minutes being around them. How do you deal with the motherfuckers my age yelling at you to play, Hammerhead? How do you deal with the road? I mean, to get on stage, because you really have mastered that very well.
Well, I can only speak personally, and I think it drips into the other guys too. But I mean, this has always been my drug. I didn't join a band as a kid to sit in studios and pine over drum tracks and move things around. Of course, I like the creative process, but the other side of it is you want the adrenaline. You want that. You want to mainline that song. That's the way I do. I want to snort one, I want to mainline the next, and the other one I'm going to shoot. And I'm going for it. And lucky me, I found a drug that keeps me off dope. So if you think in those terms, you're always going to get pretty good results. Right. And when I think in those terms, I still get nervous to this day before I go on.
Really?
Yeah, and I know because I get nervous that it still means something to me, and I still have something to prove. So I think on a personal level, you put all that shit together, you probably are going to get a pretty raw rock and roll show. I mean, and I think that's what the band is. We're not choreographed. We're not, you have to do this. Sure, things appear in the show, the stylistic type things, but I'm not an artist, for God's sake. You know what I mean? I know Derek's not an artist and Ron's not. We're 5 guys that want to get up there, and we want to fucking level you. That is the goal for the evening. So you take that, you put it together with some serious adrenaline. I think you get good results.
Final question. It is very known to your older fan base that in the beginning of Overkill, you've come from the punk DIY in your face kind of ethic. Apparently, all the bands that you have inspired have traces of that. But here you are now, 2015, still holding the flag, which is a great thing. But do you feel that the younger generation should be kind of up where you're at, man? Because it's kind of like you're still leading the pack, so to speak. What's your opinion on that?
Well, you never think in terms of leading the pack, but I do think that the older generation especially of the thrash metal community, has great things to offer. I mean, you
Still
great proof in the Exodus records, in the Testament records, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not talking the top tier of metal or thrash metal, but even the underlings of them, Death Angel guys, Overkill, I mean, et cetera. I think it's about not just the punk, but I think everything has kind of changed. Where information is instantaneous, experience is instantaneous. I think when I was a kid, I finished high school. I went to university in New York City. The New York punk scene was exploding. I mean, we had to read it in the Village Voice, and then we had to hop on the one train. We had to get down to Max's Kansas City or CB's or the Mud Club to go see the Ramones or go see the New York Dolls or see the Heartbreakers. So it kind of became ingrained in us that it was actually it was a task. It was a journey. It wasn't just available because it was in my pocket.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of what made us, from my perspective, made it ingrained in us. Sure, I was going to college, but you couldn't keep me out of the fucking city on a Saturday night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was down in the fucking Village, and I was getting my fucking, my fucking punk groove on. And I think when you look at it like that, it actually becomes part of you. You never really leave
Absolutely.
it behind. Where you can actually change it as you text and you tweet and you twat and you sit on my Facebook and it's like, it's become the norm. I mean, and obviously I have people that run that kind of shit for me. But when we were running shit and now it turned into a band, it was, you'd wear the soles out in your sneakers. I mean, that's what it was all about. I'll tell you a great story. We were managed by two guys out of a club called L'Amour in Brooklyn. Two brothers, right? Fantastic. They owned L'Amour East in Brooklyn, in Queens, and L'Amour in Brooklyn. And that was the place for a band in our area to play. Influenced by punk and a new wave of British heavy metal. And we would take turns weekly, cornering these guys and giving them press packages. Weekly, right? And it was my turn. And I saw one of them walk up and I said, "Mr. Parente, I'm Bobby Blitz from Overkill, and I have a press package for you." And he puts his hand on my shoulder, he takes the package, he goes, "Kid, I got 150 of your fucking packages." You're a nice kid, but your band sucks. And this is what he said to me, right? And I thought to myself, geez, I wonder who's going to be giving him one next week, because we're not going to stop. And eventually, because of that tenacity, they eventually became our managers and taught us the fucking world, and it was because of that experience. I mean, we didn't communicate with these people electronically. I shook his hand every time, and he appreciated that handshake, and eventually went into something and said, "This punk kid from fucking college and this other jerk off from New Jersey, I'm going to just sign them to get them the hell out of here." And it turned into something for us.
It's because they saw the hunger in your eyes.
And there's a big difference right there.
The hunger. You mentioned something, and this is something that I want to say. I know you can't say this because aside from being professional and being humble, but I can. You mentioned the top tier. The top tier has a lot to do with PR, has a lot to do with record sales, has a lot to do with what is fed. But for those of us before the internet that tape traded, like myself when I was 13, 14 years old, got that demo tape that you made. Right at the same time Metallica was doing their demo tape. So for me, Overkill is at the top tier. And just like you wrote, Overkill will never die. Bobby Blitz, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
All right, man.